We all have the same 24 hours in a day. So how do some of us get more done than others? And is there a right and wrong way to approach your day? Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. I'm Heather Hubbard, your host for Hustle and Flow, and we are on episode 197, Create More Time in Your Day. And if you're thinking, that's not possible, I am completely skeptical, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here, and at the end of this episode, I am going to give you a challenge. It's an experiment for 7 days to test out this concept. If it doesn't work, you've not really lost much. I mean, it's 7 days. We can do anything for 7 days. But if it works and you truly can create more time in your day and reduce your stress and your feeling of overwhelm, how amazing will that be? And so that's why we're covering this. I have done so many different episodes on time management, but I have never covered this particular concept, especially in detail. I know we covered it a little bit in November of 2019 at our Miami event, but I don't think we've actually done it on the Hustle and Flow podcast, and I'm so excited to share it with you today. Now, I recorded a short video that explained this concept in a visual. And so if you haven't seen that, once this is over, go watch it because I think it's going to help you visualize what we are talking about. Now, if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast, I actually have some props, so it's going to make a little bit more sense. But if you were listening on Spotify or iHeart or Apple or somewhere else on an audio-only platform, the visual really is going to help you. So like I said, I will put a link in the show notes for you to go watch this video. It's less than 60 seconds, but it's going to provide a great visual for what we are talking about today. So I have been doing this my entire life just because that is how I think I've always been wired. But it is proven, it is science-backed, and it is actually a popular time management technique. So I can tell you from my own lived experience that it works. And I can tell you from a science perspective, from those who are experts and research time management and productivity, it works there as well. So super excited to dig in. Now, this concept was popularized by Stephen Covey. So if you have ever heard the big rocks concept, that is what we are talking about today. Now, if you have tried it before and you're like, well, I've heard it and that won't work for me in my business, in my industry, or maybe even you've tried it and you were like, that did not work. I encourage you to keep an open mind. Listen and see if you hear something new this time or it hits you a different way. And if you want, I invite you to actually participate in the challenge. It's on your own. I mean, this is not an official challenge. There's no online challenge. There are no prizes. It's simply something that you can do for yourself anytime, whenever you listen to this episode, either the day it comes out or 5 years from now. But I really do think it is going to revolutionize the way that you approach your day because there is a right and wrong way to fill your day. Now, I mean, it's not like right and wrong in the sense of good and bad. It's simply if you want to create more space, if you want to have more energy, if you don't want to feel stressed and anxious and overwhelmed and like you're drowning, then that is what I'm talking about. There is a right and a wrong way to do it. And most people go about it the wrong way, partly because that's how we're conditioned, especially in this capitalist society. But I'm here to tell you the people that get to the very top, they are following the approach that I am going to share with you today. And you deserve to get to follow that approach as well. All right. So you can see with the visual, this is the end product when you do it the right way. But it involves sand, and I'm not pulling the sand out. You can see the sand. As well as I have used, it's like a little pom-pom, a little red craft pom-pom. And then I also have this purple ball, which is kind of like what you would see like in a toy ball pit for kids. And so these represent the 3 different types of tasks. Now, like I said, Stephen Covey refers to these as rocks. So this purple ball would be a big rock. And this red pom-pom would be a pebble. And the sand is, I think, still sand. So the concept is if you start with the sand and then you move to to the pom-poms, I am throwing things, and then you end with the bigger purple ball, there's actually not enough room in the container. So if the container represents 24 hours in a day, there's not enough room. And that's why you can't get it all done. There's not enough time. The thing is, this purple ball, the big rock, it is the most important. It is the highest priority. And it is what is causing you so much stress and anxiety because you know it's got to get done and it's not getting done. So the right way, and by the way, I'm going to break all of this down into detail, but I want to give you an overview first. So the right way to fill your day is to start with the highest priorities. Then you move to the tasks. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing, but I just realized the audio, you're not. Okay, so if you start with your highest priorities, which is the purple ball, and then you move to your tasks, the middle priorities, the to-do list, that's going to be your red ball or your pebble. And then the yellow sand that I have, this represents all of the time that just slips right through your hands. It's a time waster is what it is. Sometimes you got to deal with it and sometimes you don't. A lot of times if you will deal with that last, it works itself out. And that is a huge piece to how this works. But when you fill it that way, when you start with the highest priorities and then you add in the tasks and then you add in the sand, not only is there enough room in the container, the 24 hours a day, there's actually some left over. So if you've not seen the video that I'm talking about that actually represents how this works, go check it out. Less than 60 seconds. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can check it out on either Instagram or YouTube. Okay, let's go into more detail about the categorization and what represents the purple, what represents the red, what represents the yellow, because it matters. And so many people actually get the categorization wrong. They assume that something that is actually a big purple ball is either yellow sand or a smaller red ball. And so we got to get this right. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Let's start with the big purple ball. It is the most important. So this may be a big project that you need to get done. It may be a big goal that you have, a big initiative for your business. And it is a priority, but it is big and it is heavy. I mean, this ball's not really heavy, but imagine it's filled. It's a big rock. It's definitely heavier than the other examples. And so because of that, we often tend to avoid it. We procrastinate. We put it off because it feels too big. There are ways to approach that. There are ways to chunk that down. And I have previous podcast episodes that have covered that. We're not going to get into that today. But if you do need help with that, just comment below the YouTube video and I will send you the links to the prior podcasts that will help you. So that could be one example of a high priority task. Now, here are some more that you might not actually think of as a high priority task. Sleep. getting 8 hours of sleep a night. Some of you maybe only need 7. I really prefer 10. And I'm not even kidding. I've also always been like that. Sleep is so important. And if it's not a high priority for you, I encourage you to reconsider that. That also is going to help with your sense of overwhelm and stress and just overall calm. Exercise, movement may be for you. I mean, I know there are a lot of personal development people out there that will tell you you have to have that as part of your day. I'm not here to tell you that. I think you can achieve a lot without it. And what we are talking about is making more time in the day. And for some people, it's going to give you energy and help you get more done. And for others, it's not. And so I'm not passing judgment on that. But for some of you, it might be. It might be super important to just your health, your energy, whatever. That could be a big purple ball for you, a big priority. Other priorities are dreams, visions, aspirations. The number of people I know who want to write a book or want to start a podcast, or they've just got these big, for some people, it's just a side project. It's a passion project. And for others, it's truly just something on their heart that they know they want to get done. And it's really important maybe to their business, but it could also just be personally important to them. And they never do it. They never do it, right? This would be the perfect example of a really high priority item, because if you don't make it a high priority, it will never get done. Now, the interesting thing is, because that doesn't have to get done, it's just a desire that you have, you may feel as though that's not actually a high priority. And you may not even think of it on a daily basis. It might be more subconscious. But when you do think about it, or when people ask about it, and you feel disappointed, you feel grief around it, not because it's something you should do, but because it's something you actually want to do, then you know it should be a big purple ball. It's a big rock. It's the highest priority. Similarly, you might have something that's like a really big priority, like planning for retirement. And maybe it's something that you never actually focus on. I used to do a workshop where I would ask people their highest priorities, like what's most important to them. And I would even give them categories and have them rank it. And then I would give the same categories and I would say, rank where you spend the most time in a day. And rarely would they match up. Rarely would they match up, because most of us spend our time playing in the sand. But it doesn't feel fun, right? And we never get to these priorities. And this is what's going to make you feel so good. So that's how I want you to start thinking about the big rocks. It's not just a big project at work. It can also be the things that are really going to move the ball forward. It can be the things that are most important to you, even if no one else agrees or understands. Okay? Our red pom-pom ball. These are all of the things that you need to get done, but they may not be a super high priority. Examples: groceries. It might be a really high priority one day if you're out of them, but it might not be on a day-to-day basis. It might be sending out an email to your customers. It might be working on a specific project or design. There's a million of these. We have so many to-dos that they're not really, it's not make or break. You need to do it eventually. And so these can move around. But they're at the end of the day, at the end of our life, unless they're connected to those high priority, high projects, they're probably not that important. Important, but not that important. Okay? So that's what falls into the red. I feel like it's like so many things. The biggest thing is that it's something that you've already identified that needs to get done, that you need to get done. Okay? And then you've got your yellow sand. The yellow sand is generally other people's questions. It might be something else for you. But so many of us lose so much time in a day prioritizing other people's priorities. So if every time a text comes in, you feel the need to respond to the text. If every time a phone call comes in, you feel the need to answer the phone. If every time an email comes in, you feel the need to, even if you're not responding, you're at least reading it. All of these distractions with other people's priorities and other people's needs, that is sand. It's just going to run right through your fingers. You are going to lose time all day long. All day long. Other examples would be social media. We all have a vice. We all have a vice. Generally, we have more than one vice. So depending on your vices, they probably fall in this category. So it might be social media. It might be Netflix. Whatever it is for you, you know what it is. It's sand. It's sand. It's probably wasting a lot of time. Another thing that wastes a lot of time is sitting around thinking about what needs to get done. Sitting around thinking about everything you have messed up and what a complete failure you are. I know I'm not the only one who has these thoughts. All of this like critical, negative, judgmental thinking, getting worked up about other people and what they are doing and why they're not doing it the way you want to do it and why they're not including you, all of that. It is sand. It is time that is being wasted. Unless you were like in therapy actually processing it. That would count as either a red ball or a purple ball, depending on what's happening. But otherwise, just having these thoughts. Gossip, complaining, there can be meaningful connection. And then there is just time sucks. Sand, losing valuable time. And it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy those things. But when you prioritize those first, you're never going to get to the other stuff. And the trade-off is not actually worth it. So how do you start with the purple balls? Because in theory, it sounds really simple and really easy. And it is simple, but simple is not always easy. We have habits. Our brains are wired to repeat patterns. So if you have already established the pattern of doing the sand first and then the red balls before you ever get to your priorities, or it's kind of a mix, but you still have a lot of sand in there first, just making the decision to change it is not that easy. And if you need more information on setting new habits, you can go back and listen to that episode. I will put that in the show notes as well. So just know that knowing that that's how you're supposed to do it doesn't mean that like your brain is going to just follow along. So you have to be disciplined. You have to be in charge. You have to tell your brain, we are trying something new. That's why saying it's an experiment is such a better way to approach it, because your brain is often open to an experiment, because you're not saying this is a permanent change. You're simply saying, we're going to try something out. We're just going to do something new. We're just going to see what happens. And we can totally go back to the old way. Your brain tends to throw less of a tantrum when you do it that way. So, another thing that I want you to consider with all of this is what brings you energy and what depletes you. That can help you determine not only how important it is to do or not do something, but also the order in which to accomplish it throughout the day. If sleep is important to you. And maybe it's not. Maybe you're like, I've not had sleep in forever. Well, again, experiment with what would happen if you actually did make it a priority. Would it give you more energy? The science says yes. The science says yes. So if you make that a priority and it gives you more energy, it allows you to get more stuff done. It allows you to get way more red balls done in a day. If exercise gives you energy, doing that first, it's going to allow you to get a lot more done in the day because you're not going to be as sluggish and you are going to have good mental clarity. Again, that's not for everyone, but if that's for you, then making that a high priority, doing it early on in the day, that's actually going to help you get more done. Meditation, a mindfulness practice, journaling. These things may seem like a complete waste of time. Society tells us that this is sand, that it is selfish for us to do those things first, let alone say that they are our highest priorities. But if doing those things actually gives us more mental clarity, more energy, and better perspective, then we actually can get way more done in a day. So it's not just filling yourself up. It allows you to fill up others as well. If there are certain tasks that completely drain your energy, like you got to really work up to do it. We all have these. It's different for everybody, but we all have these where it is a task that we just dread. Like you may have been putting this off for over a year. Sometimes it might be making a doctor's appointment or calling a customer service rep, or it could also be something you feel guilty about. Like maybe it's picking up and dropping off your kids. It doesn't matter. Just get really honest with yourself. What do you hate? What drains your energy? What sucks your time? All right. So if it's a red ball, right? It's a task that totally drains your energy. I highly encourage you to find ways to delegate that task so that you are not doing it. If you have to do it, there are no other options to do it, then you probably only want a few in a day, and you probably want to do those either first or last, depending on your personality. So if knocking them out keeps you from actually thinking about it and procrastinating and avoiding and wasting a lot of time, do them first, get them out of the way. If, on the other hand, getting them done and doing them then requires you to need like an hour-long nap, then put them at the end of the day, but know that they have to get done, right? So they're there. They've got to get done, but do them at the very end of the day before you're going to go do something that re-energizes you and fills you back up. The sand, be super careful with the sand because a lot of times we think these things energize us when they are a time suck. Social media is a great example. So learning to put a timer on things. So it's like, okay, I can have social media, but I'm only going to spend this much time. And when the timer goes off, I got to get back to it. Or, okay, if I like to talk to my friends all day long, I'm going to put a timer on it, and otherwise, I can't engage in it. Now, again, some of this is going to require you to have better boundaries, and not just your brain, but the people around you that are used to you being a certain way. They're also probably going to be like, what are you doing? And so it's going to require some discipline to make this shift and make this change. I think the question is simply, if you could make the change such that you get all of the big projects done every single day, make a ton of progress on all of those middle tasks, would you feel better overall? Would you feel less stressed? Would you feel less anxious? And the answer, I'm going to guess, is 100% yes. So even though the sand feels good in the moment, it actually doesn't feel good in the long term. And so learning to actually moderate that and deal with that last is going to be a game changer for you. Okay, so here's the deal. The biggest hurdle that you will have in restructuring your day is mental hurdles. Like I said, your brain, it may throw a tantrum. Also, other people. If they're used to you showing up in a certain way and answering, like if they can come to you and ask whatever question they want and you answer it or you immediately go help them, right? Like you're Johnny on the spot, they also may throw a tantrum, especially if they're children. Also, if people are used to you being super responsive with texts and phone calls and all the things, they also might be thrown off. So learning to communicate that you're trying something new for your own sanity is important. And if they cannot appreciate that, it might give you information as to whether or not you're surrounding yourself with the right people. Now, I get kids aren't going to understand. You're going to have to deal. They're like, oh, my bad. I'll respect that. This really is going to make a huge, huge difference. But just knowing that the frustration may come up, just knowing that the temptation is 100% going to come up, knowing that others are not going to be too happy with this choice. I just feel like it's really helpful to know that on the front end so that when it happens, you recognize it for what it is and you're not thrown off. You're like, yep, Heather said that was going to happen and it's happening. And that's totally cool. It's totally cool because we're just experimenting for 7 days. Let's talk about that experiment because we've talked about a lot today and I don't think it's realistic for all of that to shift tomorrow. So the one thing that I encourage you to do is to simply identify at least one purple ball. That's it. What's one purple ball for you? And then make that your absolute highest priority. It has to get done within, and you're going to know how this works, within the first hour of you waking up, before lunchtime. It has to come first. It has to come first. So even if, you struggle with all the sand and the red balls, just one thing that you're going to prioritize every day. And it could be that this is different, but if there is something that's a high priority that you need to do every day, and it could be work related, related to a specific project, moving that forward. It could be working on writing the book, sitting down and doing it. I would encourage you not to do planning. I would encourage you to actually take action towards the thing. Try it out for 7 days. What happens when you have put one priority as the highest thing that has to get done that day? If you do that for 7 days, my prediction is that you're going to feel so much better just with that one thing. And as you start that one new habit, you're going to have the confidence and the excitement to maybe add in a second priority. Oh my, it's getting crazy now. And then what happens when you get 2 priorities done? And then when you feel that good, you might start to expand to a third priority. The thing is, when you focus on these big purple balls first, the rest starts to work out. So you could say the first thing I'm going to do is focus on stopping the sand. I actually think that if you focus first on the big purple ball, the big rock, the sand is naturally going to get pushed aside. It's not going to be as big of a deal. And the more you focus on these, again, it's just going to all fall into place because you're going to see the results. And most of us are motivated by results, and so we're willing to keep doing it. It's when we try things and it doesn't work that we get so frustrated, right? And so many of us try new things and then we don't follow through because we try to change too much at once. So this is your experiment. Just do one priority, do one big rock each and every day. If you already do this process, just increase it a little bit more. What's it look like to do one more priority? Or consider something else we've done. Just do one little tweak, test it for 7 days. And then I would love it if you would come back and leave a comment below the video on YouTube and let me know how it worked for you. And that, my friends, is how you create more time in your day. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after-show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.